This is the prison that houses the system's most violent criminals.
Can't you put me in the ACU and break me? All you gonna do is make me worse.
Men bent on violence, even behind bars.
We live in a hostile environment, and hostile happens.
Inmates who use their own waste as a weapon. And convicts that have seduced their female guards.
I was in a relationship with a female officer. One thing led to another.
They'll seize any opportunity to fight each other or their guards. But this place is designed to stop them.
Underneath. Bring it in.
This is Oak Park Heights Supermax.
Being assessed by the nurse.
9 p.m., October 27th, 2005. Oak Park Heights Prison, Minnesota. Inmate Micah Boyle is bleeding from a brutal fistfight. He has a reputation as a warrior because he got in 12 fights in 2 years.
And the evidence here, blood here.
And that was just at his last prison. Unable to control him, they sent him here.
Blood over here, blood on the railing, knocked the phone off the hook.
There's always going to be somebody that doesn't like you. And if I have a problem that's enough to bring it to violence, I'm going to take it to you, whether you want it or not. If somebody else has a problem with me on that level, I expect them to do the same thing.
He cuts on the back of his head.
Boyle's fight is the latest event in a long criminal history. Now 25, he was first incarcerated at age 13. His last offense, firebombing the house of a court witness, got him 6 years in adult prison. He's headed for a life behind bars,
I'll go with them.
unless Oak Park Heights can stop his pattern of violence. But already, he's been in 3 fights here.
He was calling my integrity into question, talking and I felt disrespected. If you don't have your respect in a situation like this, then you don't have anything, because then you become a target, you become whatever, you know? You become subhuman.
But at this prison, there's no tolerance for violence. The more he fights, the tighter they'll squeeze. Soon, Boyle will discover just how harsh his punishment will be. He's one of a new category of prisoner, inmates so violent and rebellious they can't be controlled elsewhere. Oak Park Heights was designed with them in mind. Miles of razor wire fence warn of the danger. The prison itself is a fortress-like compound. Thick, 5-story walls create a formidable bunker. Built into a shallow bowl of land, there's almost no way to escape. Inside, the inmates are segregated into small groups for maximum control. There are 9 prison complexes, each home to no more than 60 men. Most prison cell blocks house 5 times that number. But with inmates this violent, Oak Park Heights can't take that risk. These men are serial killers, child molesters, and sexual predators. They'll lash out at any time and in any way.
We'll get to you in a minute.
control them, each complex has its own security booth and staff. If a problem gets too big for the complex to handle, they're backed up by the Supermax Central Command.
Okay. This is the master control. We control every door, every camera. We can access anything we wish from up here. Nobody comes and goes without us letting them in. We're the nucleus institution. Everything generates out of here.
Most prisons have dozens of cameras. Oak Park Heights has over 500. Posted in hallways, doorways, elevators, and common areas, they watch the inmates at all times. If violence overtakes a unit, Master Control can flip a switch and lock the entire complex down.
The big thing is having them segregated to small numbers. In prison, numbers are power.
Small numbers create a big expense. The Supermax per inmate cost is close to $50,000 a year, almost twice the price of other Minnesota prisons. Even with the extra security, these criminals constantly try to beat the system.
We're their entertainment for 8 hours a day. I've had an offender come right up to me and tell me, hey, my job is to pull, your job is to try to catch me. And you think about it, yeah, it is. You know, it really is. Where are you going?
At 11 a.m., Officer Casey Johnson prepares Complex 6 for lunchtime. It's one of the most dangerous moments of the day. All of the prisoners will be out of their cells.
101 to 113, switch out for lunch.
If they're feeling aggressive, this is their chance to act out.
When we switch out the offenders and they go into the fluid line, yes, it can get very violent. Either the offenders in the same unit will fight against each other, or they will get in a fight with the server because the server's not treating them fairly.
The unit may look neat and clean. The inmates may even seem friendly, but violence simmers below the surface. These men committed terrible crimes outside these walls. In detention, they'll fight over something as small as a cookie. This inmate brutally murdered his father after first practicing on the family dog. This man repeatedly raped 2 college students at knife point as his friends robbed their home. Others here have both raped and killed. Inside this complex, anything can happen.
If I don't pay attention to what's happening out on the floor, my officers out there, their safety is being jeopardized because I am the main control of this unit right now, and that is my responsibility for their safety out there, because I'm going to be able to get them the help that they need.
Officer Johnson knows firsthand what these men are capable of. December 8th, 2002. Complex 5, known as The Hole, is a high-security segregation unit. A new arrival named Darnell Smith launches a violent rampage.
Just releasing anger, pent-up anger that I had directly from my trial.
Smith's figured out a flaw in the unit's design. By using bed sheets, he and another inmate have been able to secure the doors, locking the staff out. Now, they're free to destroy the complex.
What is he throwing, Joe? Concrete. All right, he's got busted up pieces of concrete.
The inmates kick chunks of concrete out of cell walls and hurl them against the glass.
That's the first time I actually felt scared as a correctional officer, because I seen them, these are bulletproof and, you know, break-free glass, and they were busting it up like no tomorrow with the cement bricks.
The staff watch, stunned, as Smith continues to vent his rage.
Well, I took it upon myself to be unruly because I feel that, you know, when you're going to do something in that manner, you're going to take it to the highest level.
The officers wait for a lull in the violence, then bust through the door and toss in gas. It takes 2 more rounds of mace and 15 men to subdue Smith. The incident leaves no one in doubt of the threat he poses.
I'm tired of being locked up, and that's what that situation was all about. It didn't matter. Kill staff, kill inmates.
In the most secure unit of the state's most secure prison, 5 cells have been completely destroyed by hand. The lines had been drawn.
We have to stick together behind these walls, just the way officers stick together. No matter what gangs individuals are in, when it comes down to it, it's us against them and vice versa.
Smith spent 1 year in segregation as a punishment. Now he's back in Complex 6, general population. He's serving a life sentence for murder and has plenty of time to plan. His next move will be far less obvious, but it will involve a guard. If the Supermax is a fortress, the ACU is the dungeon. A place for the most violent and unpredictable criminals. Most are inmates who attacked officers with weapons, muscle, and even their own waste.
They come here and they're put on high-level control where they wear all the restraints every time they come out of their room. They wear the blue helmet. This guy also will be wearing a spit mask because he's a spitter. That's one of the reasons why he's trying to bite as well. Bite and spit. That's one of the reasons why he's put on HLC.
Officer George Oswald is about to take an inmate for a haircut. Staff rarely have hands-on contact with these prisoners because they're so dangerous. When they do, at least 3 officers attend and use heavy restraints. Just a few months ago, an ACU inmate dared to take on all the guards at once.
Yeah, you do. You're an agent.
Oswald and his team will not even open the cell door until the prisoner puts on a spit mask and a padded helmet. They chain his wrists.
These guys like to headbutt staff. That's one of their good weapons. So that's more of a precautionary thing. 128A. Stay on your knees. All right, knees. Bring it out.
They wrap a thick chain around his waist and connect it to shackles on his ankles and wrists. The heavy restraint system reduces the inmate's movement and ability to attack. But that doesn't mean he won't try. Oswald and the officers keep one hand and both eyes on him at all times.
It's tough to work back in the seg in the ACU department. You got to be pretty firm back there because these inmates are the inmates that have gotten in trouble in other places. So they might be mad at you. You know, they want to cause some problems.
The ACU removes their tools for violence. The cells are 120 empty square feet of concrete and cold steel.
Here's their shower, you know, and everything's timed. They can take one shower every 12 hours. They can flush their toilet twice in an hour. They can get as much water from the sink as they want.
The toilet, sink, mirror, and outlets lock into heavy metal anchors so that they can't be ripped out.
Anything they could rip off, they would use as a weapon, you know, and that's why there is no toilet seat.
The cells also strip the inmate of all human interaction, even sound.
These guys are locked up 23 hours a day, and they get an hour exercise, but you can figure that after a year, 2 years, 3 years being locked up back here,
The suckers, they start smoking the thoroughbreds, attack the block with lock.
you start to lose it, you know. They're not seeing anyone. There's no human contact, so they just kind of start going crazy.
Can you put me in the ACU and break me? All you gonna do is make me worse.
Oak Park Heights offers a carrot in addition to the stick. If inmates follow rules and stay out of trouble, they receive privileges like getting to attend GED class, hold a paying job, and even hang out with other inmates in common areas. The approach seems to work. In 23 years of operation, Oak Park Heights has never had a homicide. But for all of the prison's successes, officers like George Oswald still face serious threats.
I've gotten pee thrown on me. I've gone into rooms that have been full of feces. It's something different every day.
The danger goes beyond physical violence. Many of these criminals are cunning predators. The small prison units that give the guards control also allow the inmates to study their targets close up.
Well, yeah, there's inmates around us right now, and they are listening. That's a fact. And there's a lot of inmates in here that are listening, and they also read lips. That's a fact. These guys have been in prison a long time. That's one of their tools. They know how to read lips, and they read their posture. They're reading us all the time as staff.
So it's real tough to sit in front of this camera right now with inmates around and talk about how we work, basically. So one goes one.
The threat is so serious, the officers will only discuss it outside. They say the inmates secretly listen to learn their personal information. The prisoners use it to threaten and extort the guards.
A lot of us don't wear wedding rings. A lot of us don't talk about our children. We don't talk about what car we drive or what make car we like. These guys are information gatherers, and they will gather information from you and use that eventually. Someone will use it against you.
They got friends out there. They call people. Even though there's a phone monitoring system here, they all know it. If they really want to try to do something on the outside, I think that it's possible they can. They got a lot of connections out there.
Of all of the inmates at Oak Park Heights, one is known as a master manipulator. In fact, it's why he's here. Darnell Smith, leader of the violent rampage in Complex 5.
My motto is chances make champions. I'm always lived by that.
At his last prison, where he was serving time for raping a 12-year-old girl, Smith discovered a weak link in the system. Her name was Tina Leah, and she was a new guard at Stillwater Prison.
She was working in the unit that I was living in A East, in Stillwater. She was at the front door sitting at the desk. And she saw me. I saw her, and I approached her, spoke to her a few times, and one thing led to another, and I asked her if she would be my woman, and she said yeah. You know, it's no different than, you know, speaking to individual on the street, you know, you in a coffee shop, a restaurant, you know, they like you.
Leah, a former homecoming queen, dated Smith behind prison walls. Eventually, other staff found out and she was fired. But the story doesn't end there. When Smith was released, he convinced Leah to help him ambush a man he quarreled with.
You know, I had coached, told my girlfriend, you know, to act like you wanted to have a relationship with him and whatnot.
Smith shot the man and cut him into pieces.
A man mowing his lawn in Colburn Township found the partially buried torso of 20-year-old Bobby D. Holder. He is from St. Paul. His limbs and head have not been found, but police were able to identify him.
He discusses the grisly killing as casually as most people would mention buying milk.
Once I dismembered him, I packaged him up and covered the hole back up.
The law caught up with the couple. Leah received 12 years. Smith got life. He had proven himself a master predator, a man capable of turning a former homecoming queen and prison officer into an accessory to murder. And now, Smith's setting his sights on a new target. At Oak Park Heights Supermax, staff stay alert against threats of violence. Officers frisk inmates each time they move to a new place.
Hold on. Everybody knows what the normal body feels like. If you feel someone's skin, you feel kind of a smooth surface. You feel any bumps or anything like that, it draws your curiosity to it, so you just check it out.
There's one activity that sets officers particularly on edge. They call it rec time. But it's prime time for violence, because the yard is where the riots occur at most prisons. Hundreds of inmates converge in one place, with just a few guards standing watch. It's the perfect opportunity for mass mayhem. Oak Park Heights minimizes the risk by limiting the number of inmates out in the yard. Only 2 units, a total of 104 inmates, can recreate at a time. All the same, the potential for violence is so great, the yard is the only place in the prison where a rifleman stands at the ready.
10-4, they're both clear.
If the 2 individuals that are going to square off, they're both going to the yard, this is a better opportunity for them to do it out here, because the response time, it might be a little longer. They go out in that corner of the yard. The staff that are patrolling the yard might be on this side of the yard. So from the time it takes us to run from here over there, might be 30 seconds. That might be 5 extra punches they can get in.
Staff know inmates are just as likely to turn against them.
My opinion, would be crazy if you didn't worry about your personal safety. You know, these guys aren't in here for singing too loud in church. So you can be respectful with them, do your job with them and all that, but if they had the chance to assault you, you got to remember that most of them would.
Back inside Oak Park Heights Complex 6, officers Tad Tagawa and George Oswald search the prisoners' cells for weapons. They have to check the rooms constantly, or inmates would build homemade arsenals.
Normally, if the inmate was in here, we'd take them out, we'd strip them, probably cuff them to the table here, cuff them, get a chair, cuff them to the table here while we do the room check. We start in one corner and just start looking through stuff.
During long hours spent alone, prisoners devise ingenious weapons.
Take a quick look in there, make sure they ain't got that.
This toothbrush, for instance, they took the blade off of the razor and just laid the blade right in there and then just take their lighter, when they had lighters, and they could just melt these bristles. And the bristles would actually hold the blade in place. And then they would actually heat this up here and put a hook on there. So when you had it in your hand, they can't take it away from you. Because if they try and pull it, they're going to cut themselves, and it's got a hook around your finger, and it's ingenious the way they were doing some of this stuff.
The knives, called shanks, have been made out of scraps of metal, stolen typewriter parts, even plastic utensils melted down. They could be hidden anywhere.
I can take the mirror, I can look, as you can see.
The very top and all the way down to make sure there's nothing taped to this. You could actually unscrew them, and then we're sticking stuff in there and screwing it back on. Now it just keeps turning. They can't pull it off.
During searches, officers also check for hooch, homemade alcohol.
Hooch you can really smell. It gets really full of alcohol, basically. You can see pretty much everything in here.
This TV set and many prison issue items come in clear containers so that they can't be used to stash contraband.
If it wasn't clear and we couldn't see in there, it would be a very good hiding place.
Here, there's a ledge right there.
They'll even conceal weapons in the toilet.
And you can tell, so you can see that there is actually a lip there. And these guys, they don't have a problem with sticking stuff underneath here because they probably will think, hey, the guy's not going to stick his hand in there. Corrected some of them, like the newer system.
In the past, the inmates have used the sewage line to pass contraband.
The toilet system is all on one line. The guy could do the same thing, attach drugs or whatever, a shank, shim, to a string, stick it in the toilet, flush the toilet. And the guy next to him at the same time would flush his toilet, and he would have a string also. And he would drop that down, and the strings would entangle. And he could physically pull whatever this guy has from his room to the other room.
Weapons, violence, and assaults. Mike Green's seen it all. He's head of the disciplinary unit, and today he's working on Micah Boyle's case. He reviews his past fights.
Okay, the guy with the ponytail is another offender here. He actually walks up to Mr. Boyle as they're walking down the steps and stabs him in the back shoulder. This was the actual homemade weapon that was used on Mr. Boyle. It's a pen that they can get like in art class, like hobby craft. We allow the offenders to have. What he did was he put a rubber band and tape around it to make a better handle on it. So not real sturdy, but those are the types of weapons that are manufactured in Oak Park Heights. As they were actually going down the stairway, he had it in his hand and kind of got him with an overhead, and he got him in the shoulder blade.
In his second fight, it looks like Boyle was ambushed. But in this last incident, Boyle appears to be the attacker.
You'll see offender Boyle actually walk over and throw a right-handed punch. Actually started the fight with the other offender. The victim actually turned out to be more of the aggressor. He grabbed one of the phones that were off the wall and started hitting offender Boyle in the top of the head.
It doesn't matter whether Boyle acted out of revenge or sheer aggression. Oak Park Heights has zero tolerance for violence. Now, Boyle's hearing is about to start. The prison will show him that if he keeps fighting, they'll come down hard.
This is a discipline hearing for Mr. Micah Boyle, OID 185981.
An external hearing officer reviews the charges.
362713. Boyle is present. Mr. Boyle, I have before me notice of violation alleging 4 counts of inmate discipline violations. Mr. Boyle, taking these one at a time, I'll ask you for your plea. The first alleged violation, again, is disobeying a direct order. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Is it your intention to plead?
Boyle knows his fights have been caught on tape and figures there's no reason to contest the evidence. Instead, he negotiates for fewer disciplinary points.
It's not even so much a
The more
penalty.
he
What
receives,
it is
the longer his sentence,
because I was
and
thinking
the
about
harsher his segregation.
my time counts no matter where I do it. The longer I'm in the hole, the closer I am to going home. What I'm more concerned about right now is my points will go up.
But then, the disciplinary board takes a hard line.
They're all attached here with it. The institution is looking at 150 days of segregation on this matter. And we would also ask for 50 days of extended incarceration. We believe here that Mr. Boyle was looking for the fight and started it.
Boyle waits outside while the court officer considers his case. He's rattled.
I believe that the offer that I got was outrageous. Because 150 days for a fist fight is too much. You don't want to go to segregation because you lose your privileges. You're taken away from your yard privileges, your gym. You're only allowed out of your cell 1 hour a day.
Boyle might have gotten 2 weeks of seg time for the fight at his last prison. At Oak Park Heights, he's facing 5 months of segregation and an extended sentence. Now his fate is in the court's hands.
Mr. Boyle, I have found you to be in violation of all 4 by your own admission, and I am going to impose the penalties requested by the state. 45 days segregation is imposed for disobeying a direct order, and 150 days is imposed for assault on inmate. Additionally, 50 days extended incarceration is imposed for assault on inmate as required by promulgated rule.
Boyle can't contain his shock.
Who am I supposed to give it to?
Myself.
I got screwed. I got 150 days because of a lengthy discipline history. My points, I have no idea how high they just got bumped up, but they're going from 53 to something else, and that sucks.
All right, take care, Boyle.
In segregation, Boyle's world is reduced to his cell.
Imagine standing in a closet with a toilet, with the door closed, and a window for outside, and living in there for months and months and months. The walls are going to start to close in on you. You're going to feel like you can suffocate. And it gets real old real fast.
Some inmates lose their minds in isolation. Boyle writes a letter to the warden, asking her for leniency. Now he waits and hopes he doesn't crack. Elizabeth Hopkins is an officer assigned to Oak Park Heights Complex 6. Just 5'2" and 110 pounds. She's used to male inmates challenging her authority.
A lot of the male inmates here have issues with women just because a lot of their crimes have been toward women, whether it's rape or murder or issues that they had with their mother in the past, anything that's ever happened to them.
But lately, one inmate has been giving her a different kind of attention. Darnell Smith. He's been telling her things other inmates say about her. Hopkins senses he wants something in return.
Darnell Smith is very manipulative in his behavior. I kind of got an odd vibe from him that I should be grateful that he was telling me these things. Like, look what I'm doing for you. You know, I'm looking out for you. I'm taking care of you.
Worse yet, Hopkins thinks Smith may be spreading rumors about her among the inmates.
And I just noticed him talking with a lot of people who were then in turn kind of treating me a little differently. Like, they would come up to me and call me baby or sugar or something obnoxious like that. And I would say, oh, whoa, what did you just call me?
Smith's behavior raises an alarm. This is the same inmate who seduced a guard at his last prison and used her to commit murder. Recognizing the danger, Hopkins submits a disciplinary report. Whatever game Smith is playing needs to be stopped. Disciplinary officer Mike Green confronts him.
Smith for discipline. I don't have an ID card.
Let it work. I'll talk to you about an issue. Officer Hopkins?
What?
She wrote a report, dated on the 6th. And it's about an issue with you and your dealings with her, your interactions with her. I'm really not in a good place about this report.
What up?
That's it. All right.
Well, first of all, stuff is being blown out of proportion.
Two things here, okay? One is, you know your history.
Right. And see, that's the thing.
Okay, well...
Exactly.
Hear me out.
That's going to be used against me every time.
Well, it's something we can't ignore, obviously, right?
Right.
So there's going to be pretty much a light on you right now, okay?
Exactly.
I mean,
She
keep your
took it the wrong way because, you know, anytime that I speak to somebody, I always got to be trying to come up with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I'm tired of it. Period. And that's part of what I was relaying and saying to her, and she took it out of context and blew it out of proportion.
I feel like that you and I can talk about this and get this resolved hopefully today.
It's resolved.
And you not going to be hearing any more about this?
No.
Do not talk to the officer about this. This is for her and her lieutenant to talk about.
Well, tell her that I want you to let her know because I don't want her thinking that...
I'm going to be letting her know.
No, I'm saying...
this conversation.
Exactly. I'm saying after what I'm saying is while I'm, you know, moving around, I don't want her thinking that I have an attitude with her or that she has to be on her guard that, is he going to do something to me now or something like that? Because, you know, I'm not like that, man.
I know you pretty well about that. But I'm going to let her know, so say nothing, all right?
Go.
All right.
Smith back to 6.
The entire staff is briefed on the disciplinary report.
It is truly a classic report on an inmate trying to get a hook into a staff. If you don't know...
The captain cautions the officers that Smith has been confronted and may retaliate. Everyone is on alert.
Complex 2 is Sergeant Wire, Cherney. Have a good shift, thank you. The Brady, stay by.
Back in Complex 6, Smith insists he's done nothing wrong.
She's not even my type, for one. 2, logging conversations that we had that she fabricated a lot of what was said, and I didn't even know she viewed it in that way. I'm just being me. I'm not putting on a front for y'all. I'm not putting on a front for the staff. I am who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
But now Smith has a problem. Fellow inmates have heard about the incident. If he does nothing, he could lose the respect of his peers.
I'm not the biggest and the baddest person in here, but a lot of them look up to me, and you know, they're aware of what I'm capable of and what I'll do. I don't want to have to take stuff to different levels. I'm trying to live as comfortable as possible.
Smith knows Officer Hopkins will report to work in under an hour. Corrections officers have their own code. Never show fear.
I don't think you can be in fear and work here. Because if you're fearful here, then you're going to become a victim in some way. They're going to target you. They're going to try to do whatever they can to make you a victim.
3 p.m. Guard Elizabeth Hopkins begins her shift. Just an hour ago, Darnell Smith was warned to stay away from her. Now, he hovers in the common area. The unit, typically a quiet place, starts to hum with tension.
It makes me more cautious than I usually am. I tend to be very cautious when I come into work, but I would say that his state is making me more hyper-aware.
Hopkins drops off the inmate's mail and notices something odd. Smith's room is packed up. Something some prisoners have done when they're getting ready to go to the hole.
We've had several guys before that have packed up their rooms ahead of time before something has happened. So I'm getting an odd vibe from him. He's a lot more hostile than he usually is.
If Darnell Smith assaults her, Elizabeth Hopkins knows it would take up to 30 seconds for the emergency squad to save her. Her life depends on being calm and having a plan.
You want to protect the vital areas. If I can spray some mace, that's great. If I can't, I'm just going to do my best to hold out until, the 30 seconds before the squad arrives into the unit.
It's critical that Hopkins not appear rattled. There are still 4 hours to go on the shift, and she's out in the open, an easy target for attack. Micah Boyle has spent the last 2 weeks in segregation. He's beginning to show signs of breaking down.
I can't guarantee that I'm a special case, but I've seen things and I've heard things that weren't there.
He's got just one more chance. He gets to leave his cell to meet with Mike Green. The wardens answered Boyle's appeal.
Okay. Warden's looked at it, and as you can see, she supports the decision of the hearing officer. Okay, she upheld the findings and disposition, so she denied your appeal.
Represent yourself in this hearing. Could not give.
And it's going to come always back to your past. You can't run away from it, the history there, okay? Stop getting in fights.
I did not plead not guilty.
It's a hard lesson, but it's exactly what Oak Park Heights is trying to teach.
Okay. And it says
I kind of look at this, though, my job in discipline as hopefully that these guys will actually learn from their behavior and not come back.
I see that.
Right.
And who do I appeal this to?
What?
This?
Actually, this one's over.
Can I appeal it to the
commissioner? No.
Yeah.
No.
You sure?
Yep. Yeah. The warden's made her decision on this. It's over.
That sucks. Therefore, my appeal is denied.
How's things going now anyway?
I want to go home.
I hear you. Me too.
This sucks.
All right. Thanks, man.
The magic words are right there. My appeal was denied.
Micah Boyle has to spend 150 days staring at the wall. All of his battles have led to this.
They say, oh, habits die hard. They do. But you got to have the desire for something better than this. Because if you sit here, you're a waste. If you're gonna spend your life in a place like this, you might as well have never have been born.
11 p.m. Oak Park Heights, Complex 6. Elizabeth Hopkins' shift is now over, but she'll be back. The officer will work tomorrow, and the next day, and the one after that. And Darnell Smith will be there tomorrow, and the next day, and the one after that. He has all the time in the world to plot his next move.
We're all pawns in a chess game, period, when it comes to life. It depends on what moves you make, what piece you feel you're gonna represent. But this is my home, I have to live in it, they come and work in it. They deal with me 9 to 5, 3 to 11. They go home, they can forget about this place. I go in that cell, I can't forget about here unless I take my mind out of here.
Smith will be up for parole in 2031. Until then, he's one of 450 inmates Oak Park Heights will be watching.
This is National Geographic Channel. Meadow comes to MSNBC Primetime.
My view of what should be in today's headlines is sometimes a little different than what everybody else thinks.
Complex down.
The big thing is having them segregated to small numbers. In prison, numbers are power.
Small numbers create a big expense. The Supermax per inmate cost is close to $50,000 a year. Almost twice the price of other Minnesota prisons. Even with the extra security, these criminals constantly try to beat the system.
We're their entertainment for 8 hours a day. I've had an offender come right up to me and tell me, you know, hey, my job is to pull, your job is to try to catch me. And you think about it, yeah, it is. You know, it really is. Where are you going?
At 11 a.m., Officer Casey Johnson prepares Complex 6 for lunchtime. It's one of the most dangerous moments of the day. All of the prisoners will be out of their cells.
101 to 113, switch out for lunch.
If they're feeling aggressive, this is their chance to act out.
When we switch out the offenders and they go into the fluid line, yes, it can get very violent. Either the offenders in the same unit will fight against each other.
You don't have anything, because then you become a target, you become whatever, you know? You become subhuman.
But at this prison, there's no tolerance for violence. The more he fights, the tighter they'll squeeze. Soon, Boyle will discover just how harsh his punishment will be. He's one of a new category of prisoner. Inmates so violent and rebellious, they can't be controlled elsewhere. Oak Park Heights was designed with them in mind. Miles of razor wire fence warn of the danger. The prison itself is a fortress-like compound. Thick, 5-story walls create a formidable bunker. Built into a shallow bowl of land, there's almost no way to escape. Inside, The inmates are segregated into small groups for maximum control. There are 9 prison complexes, each home to no more than 60 men. This is the prison that houses the system's most violent criminals.
Can't you put me in the ACU and break me? All you gonna do is make me worse.
Men bent on violence, even behind bars.
We live in a hostile environment, and hostile happens.
Inmates who use their own waste as a weapon. And convicts that have seduced their female guards.
I was in a relationship with a female officer. One thing led to another.
They'll seize any opportunity to fight each other or their guards. But this place is designed to stop them.
Stand your knees. Bring it in.
This is Oak Park Heights Supermax.
Being assessed by the nurse.
9 p.m., October 27th, 2005. Oak Park Heights Prison, Minnesota. Inmate Micah Boyle is bleeding from a brutal fistfight. Most prison cell blocks house 5 times that number. But with inmates this violent, Oak Park Heights can't take that risk. These men are serial killers, child molesters, and sexual predators. They'll lash out at any time and in any way. To control them, each complex has its own security booth and staff. If a problem gets too big for the complex to handle, they're backed up by the Supermax Central Command.
Okay. This is the master control. We control every door, every camera. We can access anything we wish from up here. Nobody comes and goes without us letting them in. We're the nucleus institution. Everything generates out of here.
Most prisons have dozens of cameras. Oak Park Heights has over 500. Posted in hallways, doorways, elevators, and common areas, they watch the inmates at all times. If violence overtakes a unit, Master Control can flip a switch and lock the entire complex. He has a reputation as a warrior because he got in 12 fights in 2 years.
And the evidence here, blood here.
And that was just at his last prison. Unable to control him, they sent him here.
Blood over here, blood on the railing, not going off the hook.
There's always going to be somebody that doesn't like you. And if I have a problem that's enough to bring it to violence, I'm going to take it to you, whether you want it or not. If somebody else has a problem with me on that level, I expect them to do the same thing.
He cuts on the back of his head.
Boyle's fight is the latest event in a long criminal history. Now 25, he was first incarcerated at age 13. His last offense, firebombing the house of a court witness, got him 6 years in adult prison. He's headed for a life behind bars,
I'll go with him.
unless Oak Park Heights can stop his pattern of violence. But already, he's been in 3 fights here.
He was calling my integrity into question, talking and I felt disrespected. If you don't have your respect in a situation like this, then